So first of all, let me congratulate MCBP, Professor Ravichandran, Srinidhi, and everyone else in your team for organizing this event. Just listening to the overall program objectives and the different modules which are going into the program, it's quite obvious that this is a very comprehensive faculty development program, a very contemporary, a very state-of-the-art, and should help all of you who are attending develop the kind of skills you need to take your academic career forward. So congratulations to everyone who has been involved in designing this. Professor Ravichandran, special word of thanks for all your kind words. I'm not sure all of them were completely justified, but doesn't matter. Anyway, thanks for it in any case. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you today. I would just like to spend 15-20 minutes with you speaking about a topic which I consider quite important, which is related to the theme of your program, which is how do you build an impactful academic career? And I think your FDP is an important step on this journey, but there are several things you perhaps should consider doing, and I would like to share some thoughts on this. The first point I would like to make is that I noticed from the participant list that most of you have PhDs. I'm just assuming that many of you would have done your PhD in India. But yes, I would just like to submit to all of you that doing PhD in India, or for that matter anywhere else, is not an obstacle. In fact, we have people with PhD from India who have done extremely well in their academic careers. And in fact, today having a good grounding in the Indian context can be very powerful, particularly for doing research in management. Let me just quickly mention a few names of people who have done their PhD in India and gone on to do outstanding work, both in management and other disciplines. I would like to start with Professor Anil Gupta, who retired from IIM Ahmedabad a few years ago. He is considered the sort of father of inclusive innovation in India. He has been focused on this whole grassroots innovation movement. And he did his PhD from an institute which most of us would not be very familiar with, which is the National Dairy Research Institute in Karnal. But from there, he went on to become a world-renowned scholar in this particular area. Or let me take the example of Professor Neena Gupta from Indian Statistical Institute in Calcutta. She recently got a very prestigious award, which some of you might have heard about. Again, her PhD was in ISI, and she's joined ISI as a faculty member, and she's now getting international recognition for her work. Or you can consider Dr. R.A. Mashelkar, former Director General CSIR, believed to be the father of intellectual property awareness in India. Has been an outstanding chemical engineer, a researcher, and a research administrator. And he also got his PhD in India from Mumbai University. I could go on. There are several examples of people who have done their PhD in India, gone on to do very significant work. I could include Professor Ravichandran and myself also in that list.
Yes, but not me.
Okay, anyway. People who have done their PhD in India and made our impact in our own ways. Yeah. So I just want to underline the fact that it is entirely possible to have your academic grounding in India and to go on to make impact as a management scholar. And I hope all of you will pursue that seriously. Just to give you some idea of what a typical trajectory of a really good scholar might look like today, I just want to give you a few examples. Please pardon me, all of these are people who I have known well, so naturally they tend to be from IIM system, but I don't think IIM system has any monopoly over learning or research or anything like that. So I'll give you an example of one gentleman, Professor Anirvan Pant. He is currently faculty member in IIM Calcutta. He finished his FPM or PhD in IIM Bangalore in 2010. He joined IIM Calcutta, I think, the year later. If you just go back and look at his whole research record, you will see that just during his doctoral program itself, he had presented 6 papers at Academy of Management. He had 2 papers in Academy of Management Best Paper Proceedings. By the time, very soon after he completed, he had 1 paper in Global Strategy Journal, 1 paper in Advances in International Management, which is a very well-renowned annual publication. He was a finalist in the Academy of International Business Best Dissertation in International Business Award. He also got the award for the International Management Division of Academy of Management for Best Paper in IB Theory in 2011 and so on. So just one person, he was able to do so many interesting things during his period of study at IIM Bangalore and a few years later. Subsequent to that, he has also published a very interesting paper looking at Hindustan Unilever's evolution in the Journal of International Business Studies, which is considered the top journal in international business. So you can just see somebody who did his PhD in India. Again, he has been working in IIM system, and he is renowned as one of the top scholars in his particular niche as far as international business is concerned. This need not be only for men, of course. We have several women colleagues who have done extremely well. For example, one of my former students at IIM Bangalore, Professor Srivardhini Jha, she went on after her FPM to do a postdoc at McGill. Then she has joined IIM Bangalore back as a faculty member. She has published in MIS Quarterly, which is a top journal in the information systems area. She has published in MIT Sloan Management Review, which is believed to be a top practitioner journal, and so on. I could just go on listing several of these examples. So my aim of telling you all this is please look around. There are several good role models for inspiration right here in our Indian environment. Please look around, please find them, please take advice from them, and please try to emulate what they are doing. There are people who have set very high standards for research and teaching, and these people would all be quite happy to generously share their time with some of you. If you have interest, and you could please reach out to them and try to get what is the best inputs you can from these people. Okay, now just going forward, let me now talk about what I believe should be your agenda as an individual scholar in your respective field. The first point I would like to underline here is that being a scholar is a marathon. It is not a sprint. It is not just, doing a 100-meter race and getting exhausted and then not being able to do something after that. Typically, as academics, we all have quite long careers. There is really no retirement as long as your brain is active, even though you may not have a regular job. So you can continue to do your research and teaching for 40, even 50 years as long as you keep good health. So how do you pace yourself, or how do you develop yourself for a long duration career? So the first point here, or sorry, the second point here is I think you need to be what is called an engaged scholar. What does being an engaged scholar mean? It means you have to engage with three different things. You need to engage with rigor. You need to engage with relevance, and you need to be able to derive good insights which are useful to practice. All these three are important. Rigor is important for your research. Without rigor, research is meaningless. Relevance is important because if you don't choose problems that are relevant to some important stakeholder group, then I don't think your research is going to have much impact in the long run. And you must be able to derive some usable insights that managers or policymakers can use, which will therefore have some impact out of the work you are doing. So whenever you choose a research study, whenever you choose some work to do, or even you choose a case study to write, please keep these three in mind. You need to have rigor, you need to have relevance, you need to have insights, and you need to try and drive thought leadership. You need to be able to continuously advance the field so that you are contributing to the incremental knowledge that is happening. And I would also suggest to you that since we are all sitting in India, your target audience should be an Indian audience. There's not much point in sitting here and trying to tell American manager what he or she should do, because we don't know much about the US. We are at least 10,000 miles away from there. There are people located there who know better. So we should really focus on how can we help Indian manager, the Indian enterprise, the Indian policymakers do their job better. So what are the detailed elements of your individual agenda? I would like to focus on a few things. First is you should have a personal vision or aspiration. You should have some goal that you set for yourself in terms of what you would like to achieve in your academic career. You should maybe try to figure out, okay, in the next 5 years, I would like to publish at least 2 papers in outstanding journals, or I would like to write at least 3 or 4 good case studies which are used in the classroom, or I want to make a significant improvement in the effectiveness of my teaching in the classroom, or some combination of these. You should set a vision or goal for yourself. Second important point is I would strongly urge you to look at yourself as more than just a teacher. All of us have to teach. We all enjoy teaching. Many of us get our identity from teaching. But there is more to academic life than being a teacher. As I mentioned a few minutes back, please see yourself as an engaged scholar, engaged with your discipline, engaged with practice, trying to do relevant research that will help the broader community. Third important element of your individual agenda is to have a strong focus and strategic intent. I think it really helps if you want to be known for something in your field, to be known as an expert. People, when they think of a particular topic, the topic on which you have focused, they should look for you. They should say, yes, you are the person whose authority on that subject. I should reach out to you. That will only happen if you have a laser-like focus on a particular area and you try to be the expert in that area. It is very difficult to be an expert of 20 things. You can't do it. You can maybe be an expert on 1 or 2 things. So try to dig deep into those 1 or 2 things, do rigorous research in those areas, understand the challenges faced by practice in those areas, try to contribute to practice, and try to make a name for yourself. I believe this is quite important. And last but not the least, have a strong research plan. Be very clear about what your research goals are, what are the new things you would like to explore, look at potential partners, look at what kind of conferences will help you develop this agenda, essentially develop a research agenda for yourself. A few practices which I think would be helpful. First practice I would suggest is benchmark against the best. Please don't benchmark yourself against someone who is not doing well. There's no consolation in trying to benchmark yourself against average person. Please look at the best in your area, in your field, in your institution, in India, hopefully even in the world. Benchmark against that person or those individuals and continuously try to improve your performance. That takes me to the second point, which is exactly that, continuous improvement. You must have a personal improvement plan. Based on your teaching feedback, you should be able to think of how can you improve your teaching further. You should have an investment in your professional development. I think you have already taken one step by attending this program, but this need not be the last program. You should invest much more in your own professional development, and don't wait for your institution or your director or somebody to take those steps. You have to be responsible for your own professional development. Set yourself stretch targets. Don't set yourself targets which are very easy to achieve. Today, academics is also a competitive field. If you want to make a reputation for yourself, you have to stretch yourself beyond what you are doing now. And do deliberate practice. Deliberate practice you might have heard of, right? There is a theory that if you want to be an expert in a particular area, you need to do 10,000 hours of practice. I don't know that anything sacrosanct about that 10,000 hours, but what I would suggest to you is you please make sure you're continuously trying to improve yourself by practicing, for example, teaching cases, improving the kind of examples you're giving, whatever it is for your research or teaching. Also, you might like to consider embracing technology and new pedagogies. Of course, case method continues to be powerful, but there are many new tools coming in. There are simulations, there are games. These days, people are using machine learning. There are so many new ways in which you can enhance both your research as well as teaching skill set. And certainly one thing you need to be very careful about is how are you using your time? Are you managing your time judiciously? I wonder how many of you are maintaining a log of your time. In a day, how do you use all the hours that you have available? And one way you can improve the productivity, you can improve your effectiveness, is try to align your teaching, your research, and your writing. If you are, this of course may not always be possible, but try as hard as you can. For example, if you are working in operations management in a particular area, try to try and make sure that most of your time you are able to spend on that and allied areas. This will create a lot of synergy between your different activities. Another important element that I outlined right at the beginning was it helps if you can create more impact. Today is a world where there are lots of people in academics, and obviously most of us would like to stand out. We would like to be known for our contribution. So how will you create more impact? There are different ways. Some of you might choose to be an outstanding teacher so that generations will remember you. But remember, there are new competition coming in. For example, there's MOOCs. Today, when you're teaching, you're not only competing with professors in your own institute, you're competing with some of the best teachers in the world. So if you want to be an outstanding teacher, there's a lot of hard work to be done. Second way you can create impact is by being a very rigorous researcher. There, of course, the way of getting respect, the way of getting well regarded is slightly different. You need to get the respect of your peers. That usually happens by publishing in the top journals. So that's the way you will enhance the respect and regard that you get in the academic community. Of course, doing research has other spin-offs. It will also maybe help you in your teaching. You will have better examples. You will have some insights which perhaps you would not have if you don't do research. And of course, you should contribute to practice. If you get a chance, look at writing in practitioner-oriented forums. Today, there's a lot of opportunities for videos and podcasts. You could also participate in executive education if opportunities come up, or through consulting. Now, of course, you might be thinking when you hear all of this, why not do all three? Why not I be outstanding in teaching, research, and contribution to practice? Well, if you have the capability and if you have the time, please try all three. But if you can't do all three, at least choose one or two out of these and make sure that you make a significant impact in that. In terms of the different paths you can follow in research, I would like to also mention a few paths that exist. One is you be an expert in your domain. That's the path I was mentioning earlier. Probably that involves choosing a slightly narrower path. You cannot be well known as an expert in finance. You'll probably have to take one vertical or one narrow sliver in finance and become an expert in that. But there are other ways you can become very well known. One is by becoming an expert in an emerging method of research. Today, for example, people are using all these new tools and techniques. I mentioned machine learning earlier, but there are many other new methods which are coming in. If you become an expert in using those methods, other people will search for you to have you as their partner, as their collaborator. This is another way in which you can become very impactful in the research you do. A third approach is that you could build a very unique data set which nobody else has. This is possible particularly if you have access to some unique data, and then you can mine that data over time. For example, I remember many years ago at the Ivy School at University of Western Ontario, they had a unique data set on mergers and acquisitions, global mergers and acquisitions, which went much beyond what was available through commercial sources. This really gave them a tremendous opportunity to do very interesting research, and many people wanted to collaborate with them in order to have access to that data set. And finally, last but not the least, you could develop a knack to identify interesting problems across domains and find ways of addressing them. Today, there are lots of interesting problems all over the world. Sometimes identifying the problems is not that easy. Many of us struggle to find the right research problem to work on. But if you have that knack, you could actually strengthen that, develop that further, and you could try to sharpen your ability to take on very interesting problems and solve them. Okay, let me just try to sum up what are the core points that I made. The point I started with by saying is that it doesn't matter where you have got your PhD from. We have several good examples of PhDs from India who have done outstanding work. So I think the most important thing is that you should be committed to excellence in whatever you do. I gave you some examples of role models whom you could possibly follow. I then underlined the importance of being a scholar is a marathon and not a sprint. It's something you need to develop stamina and muscle over a 30-40 year period. I would strongly advocate your getting involved with engaged scholarship, where you're looking at rigor, relevance, and insights. You might want to also look at building your own personal vision, aspiration, having a strong focus and strategic intent, having your own research plan, benchmark against the best, have a good continuous improvement program for yourself, manage your time very carefully, look at how you can create impact, and you could think of going by one of the different paths to achieving excellence in research. So all of this is essentially with a view to building more impact through your academic career. You are on to a good path already. You have a very comprehensive FDP you have enrolled for, which will get you ready for many of these things. But just enrolling and doing an FDP is not enough. You will have to build on that. You will have to strive over the next several years, decades perhaps, in order to use the learning in the FDP and of course learn much more and take things forward.